Holla has up. Complete honesty, this took us quite a long time to watch this film. Neither of us really wanted to see it.
Neither of us really like Elvis.
I don't want to get cancelled for this, but I kind of like Elvis.
And welcome to Cruise Next. My name is James and Elsa. I'm joined as always by Elsa Grace. How are you, Elsa?
Okay.
We're filming today for the first time ever.
Yeah.
We're filming the podcast. Whether you see the actual video or not will be determined by whether Elsa or not is happy with being.
Do you know what?
Camera.
I can't. I have so little fucks left to give just in life. I think that we'll just go for the first one that we do. But I'm a behind the camera person. I'm not like a in front of the camera person. So
yeah, we are talking, Elsa, about Elvis, and we got to Elvis as always by diving into the filmography of the crew members of the last film we did, and the last film we did was Ex Machina.
Yeah.
We picked out. What was his name, sorry? Colum Mangan, who did prosthetics on Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And here we are today talking about Elvis.
We think it's Colum. It might be Colum Mangan.
If you're watching this, Colum or Colum,
sorry,
let us know.
There are some who'd make me out to be the villain of this here story.
Let's don't let a good thing die.
Are you born with destiny? Or does it just come knocking at your door?
He's a young singer from Memphis, Tennessee. Give him a warm hayride welcome, Mr. Elvis Presley.
Buttercup.
In that moment, I watched that skinny boy transform into a superhero.
Why don't you ever bring notes?
I have notes on my phone here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I also, as well, I like to go off, like, the vibe.
That's true. But I think I have such terrible, just short-term memory that I feel like I have to write stuff down.
I will admit I did watch this film yesterday, so I kind of remember.
Okay.
It, yeah.
I mean, also, I write down a lot of statistics and stuff.
Good. Before we get into those statistics, Elsa,
Yeah.
why don't you tell the lovely people at home about Baz Luhrmann's Elvis?
Okay. I forgot that I do that at the start of these. It's been a while, isn't it, James?
Yeah, it has been a while.
Bit of
It
time.
has actually been a long time.
This isn't our first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's terrible, isn't it?
It is
it's
really.
April.
But for the viewers, it will be last week.
It'll be seamless.
Yeah.
Right.
We hope.
Elvis.
If we get our post scheduled better this year. Go.
If any producers are out there that want to get in touch with us, let us know.
Free.
For free. And coffee.
Yeah.
Not totally free.
Yeah.
Elvis. Baz Luhrmann's 2022 biopic about Elvis and his relationship.
Elvis Presley.
Was there another?
There's a great dog that I know called Elvis. Could have
A
been
great
about him.
dog?
A great dog.
I thought you were going to go Great Dane and then you bottled it.
No,
You
it's
went,
a great dog.
Not sure.
He's like tropical or something, isn't he?
I'm also not down with looking down the barrel of the lens.
You don't have to look
I'm
down
gonna
the barrel.
just-
You can look
I'm
at
gonna
me.
Look at you.
Look at
Yeah,
me.
it's a lot. So yeah, biopic of Elvis Presley following his relationship with Colonel Tom Parker, who is the narrator. Some might say little unreliable narrator at times.
Some might say that.
And it essentially follows about a 20-year span of Elvis's life from kind of his discovery by Colonel Tom Parker, who was not a colonel, by the way. And I actually...
Or a Parker.
His name was not Tom.
No.
Also, wasn't Tom Parker. And so his discovery up until Elvis's death when he was 42, which is very, very sad. And yeah, it was written, directed, and produced by Baz. There were other writers involved. I have written them down because I hate not crediting the other writers.
Please, I was about to say, please credit the other writers.
Jeremy Donner, Sam Bromell, and Craig Pearce. But it's very much Baz Luhrmann's love child in a way. They kind of shot like around COVID. That took a very long time.
Tom Hanks got ill.
Tom Hanks got COVID. Which, would have affected filming a lot because
apparently as well, it meant that some actors who were originally cast in certain roles had to then pull out because they then had conflicts of scheduling, etc.
You didn't like it, did you?
So we had a little conversation about it yesterday.
Yeah, this is the difficulty, I think. Also, when you're like friends outside of like work, it's really hard to not just like
start talking
launch
about
into
it.
and so like we'll start talking about bits and then we'll be like save it for the podcast.
When we spoke yesterday, I was like, I really don't like this film, and you were the same. Although now you're claiming you weren't.
I wasn't. No, I didn't.
You said it was boring.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't like it.
No, it wasn't that I didn't like it.
You're allowed to say if you didn't like something else.
I know, but let me get my thoughts out because you're flustering me. I think that there is always, and I don't know if this is because we work in film, but I'm very much of the school of thought that there is always something to like.
Yeah, but I'm going to get on to what I loved about it. There's stuff I loved about it, but it doesn't mean I like the film as a whole. Right,
and I appreciate that, but then I think that if I'm saying that I dislike a film as a whole, there has to be a lot more things about it that I didn't like than I did like. Yeah. And I don't know that that's the case with Elvis. Like, yes, I was bored, and I did kind of zone out, and I did start to have a bit of a chat with someone, like, just towards the end.
Right.
But, like, do I think it is a well-made film? Yes, I do. Would I watch it again? Probably not, no.
But can it be a well-made film if you found it boring, though? Because that would mean to you that there's something about it that's not engaging, the pacing of it.
I watched a short recently that I thought was a really... it was... You know?
No, I don't.
I do that all the time. Jesus, who's the really, really stylistic... I'm like losing it. Come on. What's his name? He did Royal Tenenbaums and like he's that.
Oh, Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson's new short that he did.
He makes a lot of
with
boring
Dev
films.
Patel and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right.
And it was. I think it
was
won the BAFTA for sure.
One of the Roald Dahl ones.
Yeah, it was one of the really... But whatever. Look, that was, I thought, a beautifully shot film. I thought that was a very well-made film, but I also was getting to a point where I was like, how long is left of this beautifully made film? You know? I can still, like, look at things and go,
but I think that's
they did a great job.
No, but I think that's very different, though, because I think what you're talking about there is, like... I think there can be things about the film that are, like, beautifully crafted. So, like, cinematography can be beautiful in a film that doesn't work. Do you see what I mean?
But so you, as a whole, did you think this film didn't work?
It didn't work for me.
Okay.
It didn't work for me at all. I think there are aspects of it, which I'll get onto, that I think are brilliant. But as an overall piece of work, I think it failed to deliver for me what I felt like it needed to deliver. Do you see what I mean?
I don't know, that's fair enough.
But if we start with the positives, though, maybe that'd be a good place to start. I think Austin Butler is incredible in this film.
Yeah. It wasn't an imitation, like it wasn't mimicry. It was like he really inhabited. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
he was Elvis. Like,
it was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a particular moment at the end of the film where you've got the old, well, he's not even old really, is he? Because he died so young, but Elvis towards the end of his life singing at his final concert.
Painful.
And it starts with Austin Butler, and then suddenly you cut to the real footage of Elvis, and it takes you a moment to realise that you're looking at the actual Elvis and not Austin Butler, because it, even like, you know, there's sometimes you watch a film where someone's playing someone else and they've got all the mannerisms down and the voice down and all that kind of stuff, but like they don't still quite look like
like when you
person.
try and do your Michael Caine.
Yeah, I don't look like Michael Caine.
No, you
but
don't.
everything else is spot on.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it?
So,
But no, yeah, it was incredible. Shout out to Polly Bennett, who was the movement director for this film, because Jesus, even just like, not even just in his performance movements, which were uncanny because they did a huge amount of like archival research, and I think Austin especially was just watching like the live performances over and over.
Poor guy.
Even just like
I just don't.
you
like
hate
Elvis.
Elvis.
I don't like
You just
Elvis.
say
I
Elvis.
really don't like it.
Even just like his walks, like it was incredible. I remember even like when he's lying on Priscilla's bedroom floor when they're kind of first starting to like court each other. He's just lying there. He's not doing anything, and I was like, Elvis.
Yeah, it's mad.
He's still Elvis.
Actually mad.
Yeah, spectacular. He was by far the best thing about this film.
Like in his eye, there was moments where just his eyes, I'm like, that's Elvis. Like, it's so weird. Like,
because I was reading something a while. This was before I saw Elvis. It was a while ago, and it was kind of comparing Austin Butler's Elvis to Rami Malek's Freddie Mercury, and how he had the teeth, the prosthetics, and you know, like the mustache and these kind of, you know, helps, I suppose, whereas Austin literally had like a bit of eyeliner and like that was kind of it. It was all him. It's all his physicality. It's all his voice, who we just looked up, Irene Bartlett, who was the vocal dialect coach for Austin. Just incredible. Really, really good.
Yeah, so I thought because he held my attention when a lot of the other aspects of the film were sort of jarring me out, which we'll get onto. He held my attention like so much in some of those, like especially in some of the performance scenes, but also some of the quieter scenes. There's that scene where he's like crying over the death of his mother, and he's like sat in her like wardrobe, and like there's something about Austin Butler's performance. And this is only the second film I think I've actually seen Austin Butler in, and the first film I've seen Austin Butler in was June 2, like I don't know, like 2 weeks ago. So I've just suddenly gone on this, like in the last 2 weeks, suddenly been introduced to this actor who's like I just don't think you can take your eyes off him on screen. Like in June 2, he's just like the most terrifying person I've ever seen. Again, in a film that I thought was incredible, but also very long, and I felt my attention wavering at times. But every time he was on screen, it was like, yeah, I'm right here. And it was a bit like that with this film. It was kind of like my attention would waver.
Yeah, pretty similar characters actually, aren't they?
Yeah, very similar, very similar. And Austin Butler would come back on the screen. You'd be like slightly transfixed by him. I can't really describe.
He's just such a chameleon kind of actor. Do you know what I mean? You really don't know what you're going to get when you see that he's casting something until you see him in it, because like he's completely transforms himself. I saw an interview that he did. This isn't really Elvis related, but like press for June 2, and he was like, they were talking again about his voice, just an incredible voice actor, clearly. But how obvious... I said this to my housemate, and then my housemate sent me a link of, I think it was actually Mark Kermode who noted this as well. When I was watching Dune 2, if I closed my eyes, I did not know who Skarsgård was and who Austin Butler was. Just from the voice, I was like, couldn't fucking tell you.
Yeah.
And he didn't tell Skarsgård that he was going to, you know, have this voice and do this voice until the day of shooting. And apparently he was just like blown away. He was like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, you sound
just... Because Stellan Skarsgård has like a very distinctive voice.
It was... he's unbelievable. He's a really, really good actor. I think for him alone, this film is worth seeing.
What is this?
Well, that's what we owe the Colonel. We're broke.
Daddy, I've been playing this mausoleum for 100 years. How could we be broke?
You spend so much money, you know, you got the cars and the girls and the clothes and all the, you know, new airplane.
Daddy, you are my business manager. You're supposed to be taking care of
I don't know what
business.
to tell you, son. We're broke. We're plain broke.
Because also, this, look, hold our hands up. Complete honesty, this took us quite a long time to watch this film. Neither of us really wanted to see it.
Neither of us really like Elvis.
I don't want to get cancelled for this, but I kind of like Elvis.
Oh, do you?
Well,
thought you
my
didn't.
mum, when I was growing up, like, we had like a certain number of cassette tapes, showing my age, in the car that we would listen to. We would do a lot of long car trips, and one of them, and I just remember it had like blue suede shoes on it, and that was my favourite song.
Oh, okay.
So like I did grow
So you're
up
a bit
liking
more fond
Elvis.
of Elvis than
Yeah,
than I would
I
be.
mean, now that I'm like an adult, I can appreciate how Elvis is more problematic than like my childhood self thought that he was. So like, I'm not saying like I love him as a person, but like
No,
the
but
music
you like
of
the
Elvis.
music of Elvis.
Yeah, I grew up
Right.
with it. Like, I don't hate Elvis, but it was just when I see this film is 2 hours and 39 minutes long. Whenever I see a film that is that length, I'm kind of turned off. Like, does it need to be? Does it need to be?
Yeah.
What happened to the olden days where they had intervals in movies?
That's true, yeah.
Do you remember Sound of Music? That has like a 15-minute on the DVD. There's still...
Yeah, 2001 has like an interval on the Blu-ray. What's your so you went into this liking Elvis's music? What's your I was going to say position. That sounds too serious. How do you feel about Baz Luhrmann's films in general and his style of filmmaking?
Baz Luhrmann. I mixed feelings.
Okay.
I appreciate him a lot as a filmmaker. I appreciate any director who has like a really clear style. I always think that's quite cool. I've loved Baz Luhrmann films. I loved Romeo and Juliet, and I actually think it did a lot for like the younger generations to understand Shakespeare. Like, it really contextualized it in a way that like they showed it to us in school. Like, and I know for a fact that got a lot of like the boys in my class who couldn't really be asked with Shakespeare. Like, you know, when there were guns and drugs and that kind of stuff involved. Sorry to be a bit like minimizing that, but that did great things, and I know that probably wasn't his intention, but like I think he's made a lot of really incredible films, and Moulin Rouge was one of my favorite films when I was growing up. We used to watch it on repeat. I loved Australia, also too long, maybe potentially too long, but I did love Australia. Hate that they've made it into like a mini series on Disney. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't
They've
seen.
broken
I haven't seen
up
the original
film.
though, so.
The film is long, the
Yeah.
film is great, but they've broken it up into 6 episodes and re-released it onto Disney Plus,
Oh wow, okay.
which I've not seen done
That's
before, and I think
odd.
is kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that I like about about Flaflugel. Do you know, the way that I got into the film industry, I don't know if you know this, there's a production company called Camp Productions. And they did a music video, and it looked like Baz Luhrmann. Like, it looked like this kind of fantastical, colourful, kinetic video. And I was just like, oh my God, like, yeah, I love this. This is, and I just messaged them and I was like, I love this video. It looks like Baz Luhrmann and I love Baz Luhrmann and, you know, I would love to work with you guys. And they were like, yeah, sure. Well, I mean, what do you do? Do you work in film? And I was like, no, I'm a marketing manager, or whatever I was doing at the time. And they were really incredible. This lady called Francesca Woods, she was like, okay, well, you can be a runner. If you can come on to our next shoot, you can be a runner. And I went and I was, you know, making cups of teas and coffee in the rain, and it was so miserable, but I was so psyched to be there. I was so happy. I was like, this is what I want to do. And I went in the next day, like literally the next day I went to my job and I quit. And that was how I started in the film industry.
You can do it too, kids.
And I just, from like seeing something on Instagram and being like, I love this style. Because like that was kind of the style of film that like I grew up with. My mum loved Baz's films. And so yeah, shout out to Baz Luhrmann.
Right.
For my career.
Okay.
No, it's a very tenuous link. But I do like Baz Luhrmann, but I will say his recent works, I feel, have lost me. Didn't love The Great Gatsby. But I mean, I guess didn't love Elvis, if I have to say it. What else has there been recently?
Well, before Great Gatsby, it was Australia, so he doesn't make that. He's only made 6 films.
6? No.
Yeah, and he made the Get Down, that Netflix series. But apart from that, he's only made 6 films. So because I was looking earlier, I was like, how many of Baz Luhrmann's films have I actually seen? And I've realised I've seen half of them because I've seen 3 Baz Luhrmann films.
Which are the ones that you've
So
seen?
I've seen Romeo and Juliet because everyone's seen that, and I don't particularly like that. Again, there are some amazing moments in it. The scene with Leo crying in the rain, like because he's going to go and fuck up Tybalt.
And he says, "I am fortune's fool." Is it
like,
that bit?
Yeah, that brilliant, right? But yeah, I don't love Romeo and Juliet.
How can you say that?
Because fundamentally, so I'll go through what films I've seen of his. Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. And Elvis, which I'm kind of
we just saw that.
not great on.
We should talk more about Elvis.
I think fundamentally, well, we're talking about Baz Luhrmann. The fundamental problem is I don't get on with his style of filmmaking at all.
It's very music video-y, isn't it? It's very pop.
And what I
culture-y.
don't understand is that there are other directors, like, and I'm not. This isn't gonna be me defending Michael Bay, right? But like Michael Bay.
Bad way to start.
No, but Michael Bay is criticised, and there's lots of things you can criticise Michael Bay for. Obviously, I'm not defending Michael Bay, but Michael Bay is criticised all the time for basically being a music video commercials director, and then that is his whole style of filmmaking, is like music video, kinetic, like cameras moving all the time, like, and people think that's really bad when Michael Bay does it. When Baz Luhrmann does it and makes a film that is essentially like a music video, people are like, it's brilliant, he's great. And I think there are moments where it really, really works. And in Elvis, some of the performance scenes where Elvis is performing, and you feel like you're seeing, it felt like you were seeing Elvis for the first time ever, and it felt like I suddenly got it. I suddenly got Elvis through this film. Like, there's a performance where he's been told to not move, to not shake his body like he does and excite the women.
Was that Rushwood, I think?
Yeah, and then he gets arrested afterwards, which apparently never happened. But the way he films that, and he puts you in the crowd, he puts you through all sorts of different filters of like photography, 35mm, like film cameras, like shooting photos of him in black and white. You get like intense slow motion close-ups of him. You're suddenly like, fuck me, Elvis is the best thing ever. Like, fucking hell, like he's so cool, right? Which, like, I've never thought about Elvis and will never think about Elvis again. But you're watching, you're like, it's like watching like a fucking rock star, right? Because I guess that's what he was at the time.
My dear boy had chosen you, his audience, his fans.
So I think in those instances,
Yeah.
Baz Luhrmann style really works. My issue with it is when that style means that no scene really lasts longer than like, for the first sort of hour of the film, no scene lasts longer than like 2 minutes. And you never get a pause for breath.
That's not true.
It is
but
true.
that's
I
how
counted.
it feels.
That's how it feels.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you never feel like. I think it gets better towards the end. He gives you a bit more breathing space towards the end, and there are some scenes that I've noted down that I think are really like powerful. But early on, I felt like I was getting whiplash, being like torn from one place to the next because everything was like a montage or the camera was moving like this all the time.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, can we just put the camera on a tripod and just leave it for a bit?
Yeah.
And I think that's my issue with Baz Luhrmann's films, is I just find them too visually arresting that it takes away from the story for me sometimes.
Yeah. I agree with you in the sense like the way he merges VFX and real-time footage, I can find a little arresting at times. Like when he pulls out and like, you know, suddenly you're seeing the globe and then you go back in and you're like, obviously that's an exaggeration, but you know, like that kind of stuff.
We should have filmed this podcast like a Baz Luhrmann film.
We'll do it in post.
That would have been good.
Yeah, that kind of stuff I do struggle with, but I do the other stuff that you're saying, like I don't know if I agree with it, like because I think that adds to the film, like how you're saying that later on in the film that the scenes felt a little gentler and longer. That is because they've done the frenetic, kinetic kind of moves at the start, and it was. I mean, that's how they wanted it to. They wanted to show it as like the supernova, you know. So it's like suddenly it's a very quick, chaotic ride to the top, and then it's, you know, it's like arrested momentum where it stops at the top and then it starts to gradually fall again.
I get that, but then I think it made it difficult for me to connect with any character on an emotional level for a good portion of the film.
Other than Elvis?
I don't feel like I connected to him at the start. I couldn't connect to anyone because I felt like I never had time.
What about the scene on the Ferris wheel? So the Colonel discovers Elvis at like the Louisiana Hayride event, and then, you know, he is just kind of like he's like a showman, like a circusman, and I quite like that they had this conversation on the Ferris wheel, but that was quite like a slow, gentle scene and where they're having that discussion.
It was, but it was cut up. It was a montage at the same time. And everything in the first, it felt like, it's probably not true, but it felt like everything in the first hour of the film was a montage. And I just needed it to stop for a moment. And that was the issue I had with it, is that I don't mind if you're going to be visually arresting and engaging with your, like I said, I think there's some moments where it really works, but I need to be able to stop and connect to a character without it being a montage all the time. Sometimes the montage works brilliantly. There's that bit where you before you see Elvis at the Louisiana Hayride, he's trying to get himself psyched up to go on stage, and they intercut it with him discovering music for the first time, and like the gospel
when he's a
church.
Boy.
And that,
it's like the deeply like desaturated shots to show.
Yeah.
I kind of like that though. It's a very obvious move, but like
that
I really
montage
like that.
is like, it gets you kind of pumped up.
Yeah,
and
it does.
And that so.
We're just like Polly Bennett again, because that little boy, when he's like being
Also,
taken
how much
over
did that little
by
boy
the...
look like Austin Butler as well? Like, it was pretty impressive.
Really, really good. That stuff was incredible.
But yeah, so like in places, like I said, I feel like it really works. I just wish he operated with a little bit more restraint at times.
The way you sing and move, it's God-given. So there can't be nothing wrong with it.
I felt almost like there were 3 parts to this film. There was the first part, which was like his kind of pre-discovery of the, by the Colonel and his like upbringing, and then his kind of career and his rise and where he was going, and then you have the Vegas years like at the end, and I feel like you don't necessarily the pacing isn't the same all the way through, and that's not what they wanted, and you don't get the kind of like slower, calmer moments of when it's all fallen apart at the end without like that chaos.
But I will argue that I didn't expect us to like be disagreeing so much on this. I will argue that you found the film boring. So in that case,
it's just too long. I think I
no.
ADHD.
In that case, the pace. Then there
me.
is an issue of pacing. Then you didn't find Oppenheimer boring. That was longer.
Yeah.
So
but
there's an issue of pace.
I was in the IMAX, and do you know what I mean? Like when I'm in my home and I'm like, fuck, it's like 4 on a Tuesday and I've got like stuff to do.
Okay, but like I do think if you're finding and we both said this, we found the film difficult to engage with at times, and I feel like then that is an issue of pacing. So you can make an argument for, well, it has to be like this for that to end, for it to feel like that at the end, but then fundamentally, if we both struggled with connecting with this film, then that means that somewhere along the line there is an issue with like pacing and the way it is paced.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Do you know what I mean? Can we talk about Tom Hanks?
Yeah. You didn't like it. I will say, just before we start this, Baz Luhrmann, Bazza.
Barry. Is he a Barry?
Baz. He's got to be, yeah. But he's Aussie, isn't he?
Yeah. All right, Bez.
Bez.
Yeah.
Bezza.
Yeah.
Let's stop while we're ahead.
Yeah.
Baz Luhrmann does have this kind of, in terms of like his characters, his actors, he has like, obviously his style is quite like bold and kinetic and colourful and fantastical, but then his characters are all very like naturalistic, and they're super like, they're often played in quite a straight way, but then he will always have at least one character. So like Jim Broadbent in Moulin Rouge, or Chris Rock in Romeo and Juliet, and Tom Hanks in Elvis, who's always a bit more out there and wacky, and like that does seem to be his style a little bit in terms of like casting, I've noticed, but like, and I don't know if that's something that's done deliberately. I don't feel like Tom Hanks's character was there for any kind of like comic relief, really. It was, I mean, whatever it was very sinister. And I feel like there was like potential for Tom Hanks to play him just straight monster, but apparently he had a chat with Priscilla and Jerry Schilling before, going into production, where they were like, no, he wasn't a monster. He was really charming. He was really he was a suave guy. Like, don't just play him as evil. Like he just wasn't. That wasn't how he came across. And none of us would have gone for him if he was, like how he convinced Elvis's dad to become his manager, Richard Roxburgh, played the dad. I thought his performance was incredible, by the way. He was
good, yeah.
spineless, and you just wanted to shake him and be
There's that moment where like
yourself.
Elvis is passed out on the floor.
Yeah, my God.
And they're like, and Tom Parker's like, we need to get him on stage, come on. And
he's like, the only thing that matters is that this son gets on stage tonight.
And then he turns to the dad and goes, well, it's a Presley matter, like, what do you want to do? And you can see the dad, and he's like, he knows, what he's really knows he should do, and that is just help his son. And you almost see the switch in his eyes of like, yeah, that's like, doctor, what can you give him to be able to get up on stage?
That broke
and that's
my heart.
Actually, that is something that this film does, before we get on to Tom Hanks, is that like, it did give me an appreciation of like I said, it gave me an appreciation of Elvis on stage as a performer, but it also gave me an appreciation of like, I didn't actually know a lot about his life. And I didn't know sort of basically how broken he was by the end, and how the Colonel had a big part to play in that, and all of the, and the way he was controlled so much. And you think about, you know, we've had recently like all the stuff about Britney Spears' life come out and stuff, and you makes you realise like, it's just like, it was happening back then and it's still kind of happening now, and like it just doesn't change. Do you know what I mean?
Honey, there's this place in San Diego that you can go to rest, to heal. And after the show, you can fly directly and be in a clinic before anyone knows. It's all been arranged.
I won't be 40 soon, shall I? 40. And nobody's gonna remember me. I've never done anything lasting. I never made that classic film that I could be proud of.
Did you think that Tom Hanks was like a bit ridiculous in it? I didn't hate him. I didn't hate it.
I hated it.
You hated it?
I will say again, I've noted down, I spent the film noting down every time, because at the start, so basically what happened was, when I was watching this film, at the start, I tried to go into this with a really open mind, because I knew I'm not a fan of Baz Luhrmann's work generally, and I'm not a fan of Elvis, right? So going into this was really hard for me to like, to not just be like, oh fucking hell, I've got to watch this film. So I was really trying, especially having seen Austin Butler in Dune and having an appreciation of him as an actor, I was like, I'm going to really try and go into this with an open mind and just like let it.
Okay.
So, and then I really struggled with it for quite a long time. And I think once I finished the film, I had a slightly different appreciation of it than at the start. But so as I went on, I started noting down all the stuff I liked about it to try and sort of help my way through the movie.
When you say it, do you mean Tom Hanks?
The film.
Oh, right, okay.
But also, so Tom Hanks for me, especially at the start of the film, was a real turn-off of like, and I love Tom Hanks, right? But I was like, my God, this performance is weird and kind of ridiculous, and like the accent's kind of weird. I felt like
Where is he from?
He's from the Netherlands.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I was kind of like, it's kind of weirdly German, and kind of, once I kind of knew he was from the Netherlands, because he says it later on, like when I came from the Netherlands, I'm like, oh, okay, he's doing the Netherlands.
He's doing the Netherlands.
But
classic Tom Hanks.
And I kind of felt like the prosthetics and the fat suit and the makeup, like it jarred me out a little bit. And so then I started noting down every time I thought Tom Hanks was really good in this film to try and help myself
That's
along.
never a good sign, is it?
No, but there were some moments where
what are the moments? Hit me with the moments.
So I've already mentioned this scene, but when Elvis is crying in the wardrobe about his mum dying, and the Colonel comes in and says, I will basically be your mother. from now on. Like, I will be everything that she was for you. I will be there for you. I thought that was an incredibly well played scene, and that was where I was like, Tom Hanks is back. Like, we've got Tom Hanks back. There was another scene in which, where they argue in the dressing room, where Elvis wants to start making more political statements after the death of JFK and Martin Luther King. And the Colonel is very adamant that we don't do politics, and that's not how we. And I thought both of them in that scene were really good together. It was just before before the holiday special show.
Right. I think it's similar to, like, do you remember when we did House of Gucci and we were talking about
Jared Leto?
Yeah, and
it reminded me a little bit of that. It
was a little bit like that, where it was like, standalone, not horrific, like, cool, that's the style that we're going with. But then when you compare it with the completely, like, straight-laced performances of everyone else, like, when you look at the performances of, like, Helen Thompson, who played Elvis's mum, for example, like, all of those scenes within, like, the Elvis home kind of setting, so soft and really, like, more what I would think of when I think biopic. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think when you compare it to those things, it is a bit like,
maybe
it's
that's
my
what
least
it is.
favorite.
That's a really good point that I hadn't thought of, because I actually did think of Jared Leto when I was watching this film because of the accent and stuff, and, like, the slightly, like, pantomime nature of it.
The belly, and
and I'd forgotten about how he said that. Yeah, I think maybe that is it. It's the contrast, right? It's like, you've got Austin Butler, who is just Elvis, and then you've got very clearly Tom Hanks in a fat suit.
Elvis.
Like, that it becomes slightly more difficult.
Agreed. I have a question.
Yeah.
Elvis as an artist and the controversy that surrounds Elvis around, you know, the debt that he owes to black musicians and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was literally about to bring this up. It was the next thing on my list.
I'm going to get there first.
Yeah.
How did you feel this film kind of handled that?
I thought it was very interesting because...
You had, a few of the artists were featured, right? Like, B.B. King was, like, a repeated character.
Yeah.
Right. Sister Rosetta Tharpe, like, as well.
So, I thought it was interesting because there is that issue around Elvis. I didn't realise that he grew up in a predominantly, like, black community. I had no context of that in terms of, like,
it was like a poor neighborhood in, like, Mississippi, right?
So you can understand that if you grew up around that music, that's the music that you would want to perform, right? Like, that's the music you grew up on. That's the music that, like, means something most to you. I think, without getting into the debate of whether or not Elvis is appropriating from a culture that he doesn't necessarily belong to, I think that what was interesting about the...
Is it a debate? Is it a debate?
Well, no, but, like, without, like, really going into that
conversation, okay.
Conversation, probably that word. What was interesting about the film is I felt like often they would directly show you, like, from basically, like, one cut to the next of, like...
Who he took the song from. Right.
And, you know, and there's that scene of Little Richard as well. And Elvis turns to B.B. King and goes, I want to record this. And
I couldn't stop staring at Little Richard in that scene, by the way. I thought that was a spectacular scene.
And B.B. King says to him, well, if you record it, you'll make a hell of a lot more money than he ever will.
Yeah.
And I thought that's an interesting, you know, it kind of felt, I don't know if the film kind of played lip service to the conversation without ever really getting into it. And then I wasn't sure by the end of what the film was actually trying to say about it. Because on the one hand, it felt like it was aware that this is a conversation that people are going to have, and we've got to showcase, in a sense, the black artists that he took the music from.
Right.
But then in the same breath, will linger for 5-10 minutes on Elvis performing this song and show how amazing he is at performing this song. And by the end of it, we're not really remembering who originally wrote it.
But that's what I mean. Like, you said lip service, and I think that is what they were trying to do with it. I think it was just lip service, because it was not depicted in a way that was accurate. Like, you know, it shows him just like merrily strolling along Beale Street and everyone's like, Elvis, what's up?
Yeah.
And like his, you know, super cushy relationship with B.B. King. But then, is that really what their relationship was to Elvis? Like, did they give permission for him to go?
Little Richard for sure didn't, and was very angry about it. But then But then it also did end up being a more successful song for Little Richard than it ever was for Elvis, which is an interesting kind of. But
I mean, is that interesting? Like, that was they said that in the film, right? Where he was like, yeah. I mean, you could do this song and it would be way more popular.
But like, it was more successful for Little Richard than it was for Elvis, that song. So it is interesting.
Oh, right. Okay, understood. I mean, it was also. It was the reason why he was getting into trouble with the police, right, was because his moves were too similar to, like, those in black culture. Mm. And so, like, that in itself was, I don't know, it was contested of the time. But, like, what did they call it in the film? Wiggling?
Yeah.
Was that the ladies want to see you wiggle? I hated that. I hated that line. But also I really enjoyed the performance of that one essay it was when Tom Hanks was like narrating like what was happening to her physically. She's basically orgasming listening. I'm like watching Elvis. I thought that her performance was great. I wish I had like got her name. But yeah, no, I do think it was lip service because they just show his relationship with all of these artists as being really lovely and friendly, and it was a completely consensual transaction of musical rights, which we all know now, you know, that it wasn't. And do you remember that soundbite from Ray Charles that went like it went viral again in like 2020, I think, where he was just like, well, I mean, like, fuck Elvis. Like, what do you want me to say about it? Like, he's going around calling himself the king. Like, he was a mimic. Like,
yeah.
But, you know, then you have other artists like Richards who was like, no, like, Elvis was a great performer. He was a performer. That's what he was. And, like, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I feel like this film was, do you know what? In a way, I'm not super mad about it. I feel like the film was trying to focus more on, like, Elvis and the Colonel's relationship, and films previously have just like very much like swept over his, you know, theft of like black culture and black art. And I'm not, you know, not being like, good job on this film, because they acknowledged it, because like they barely acknowledged it. But like, it would have been a very different film, I think, if the focus had been on that element.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, like...
But that was his whole career. I'm sorry, I'm so torn about it. He built his whole career off the back of black artists.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because, like, then you are making a different film, right? Like, by the nature of it, if you focus on it, then you have to... And I think that's maybe what is... I'm not sure what's worse, to sort of just skim over and not talk about it at all, or just kind of pay very light lip service to it, because then that just feels like, well, you're only putting that in there because you know everyone's going to say this, but you don't actually want to engage with it as an actual topic, right? And I get that that's not the film that they were making, or the film that they wanted to make, and, you know, and it is very much a film about the Colonel's relationship to Elvis, but then it becomes very difficult when you can't just, you can't, it just feels like you're trying to paper over the cracks really quickly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the thing I've written here is, throughout the movie, they constantly contrast the original black musicians that Elvis sees perform the songs he ends up becoming famous for. And then I've put, what is the film trying to say about this? And I don't know what the film's trying to say about this, because I don't know what their position on it is, because they don't engage with it enough, and they do try and paint it in a very positive light.
Yeah. But if there had been a moment at some point where, like, I don't know, like Ivory Joe Hunter or like Bat Starmer, like someone had come to Elvis and been like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, say our names, credit us, put us down as like a writer, put us, like, if that could have been, if you're saying all these 2-minute scenes, like that could have been a 2-minute scene shown in the downfall of Elvis when everything's going to shit and he's essentially just the Colonel's puppet at that point. Like, even more to just hit home, like, yeah, fuck me, this is going terribly. My life is going terribly. Like, that could have been something. But then again, is that complete fabrication? Like, did that ever happen? Like, because back then no one was crediting the people they should have been crediting. Like, no one was paying the people that should have been paid.
That's a nice ride you rode up in tonight.
Well, ain't like your big BB King bus.
Big Red. Yeah, well, I can go where I want, play what I want. If they don't like it, I can go someplace else. You've got to be in control, man. You should have your own label like me. You don't do the business will do you.
Man, I just leave all that to the Colonel.
So it's his idea, this new Elvis. Listen, I don't get it, man. Cats buy your records because they like what you do, not because you're dressed up like some butler.
I read a bunch of stuff about Mandy Walker, who I knew of before. Mandy Walker was DP for this.
You said that then, like, when you're like, I knew them before they were famous, actually, so. No,
as in, like, I read a bunch of stuff about her, it's that I read a bunch of stuff about this film, her work for this film. But, she has been working with Baz Luhrmann for, like, 20 years. She did one of, like, his first commercials for Chanel, which I just think is so cute. So they've been working together for a very long time. She also was the DP of Australia. And she's just, in my opinion, a kick-ass DP. I'm obsessed with her. I love her. She's very much like a champion of women in the camera team as well. So, like, she she succeeds in having, like, majority female ACs and female grips.
Which, for anyone who doesn't know, like, the camera... Well, actually, to be fair, a lot of the film set is very male-dominated, but especially especially the camera team, it's very...
But apparently in, like, active, like, film crews, 6% of DPs are women.
Right.
Which is wild.
Yeah. And you think about how many film crews there are filming stuff all over the world.
Yeah.
It's mad.
6% is nutty.
Yeah.
But she had 2 sets of lenses specially made for this film by Panavision.
Right, okay.
That's how you...
isn't it? Like, it's like
call Panavision.
It's like when it's like Kodak making inventing a whole new film stock just for Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer.
Before he was even knighted.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When people ask me for favors, I'm like, are you knighted yet? But I guess Kodak don't care. So she had, like, two special sets of lenses made. One was, like, flatter and, like, not technically perfect, and that was for more, like, the vintage kind of shot. So, like, start of life up to probably, like, I think up to, like, Vegas.
Okay.
And then the second set was, like, it was, like, super 70s style, very, like, anamorphic kind of set of lenses that she opted to use like a lifetime like grain texturing called live grain. Have you heard of live grain?
Yeah.
But like it just blew my mind how like she put this together. And that's why like all of like the stuff more to do with, I mean, basically like the shots age with the film, and like that desaturated stuff at the start when he's like a boy, and like it's all just like it merges together so like deliciously. And the kind of journey of the lenses is pretty seamless. It's hard to pick it apart unless you're really looking for it, which I think is perfect. That's how they wanted it. And I remember reading that her and Baz, when they were like in, or like even before production, even before pre-production rather, they were talking about like, I think there were a couple of parameters that Baz wanted to put in place, and one of them was like the camera moves with Elvis. So like her grips, her ACs, they went to like every rehearsal that Austin did, and they just watched his rehearsals.
Long.
Literally. And like the biggest, like one of the biggest performances, which I think must have been like Rushwood, when they had like they had the Technicrane going, and like it would literally stop like this far away from his face. Like everyone, she made them memorize like the songs of Elvis. Like they knew the timing, they knew that like it was so, everything was so like almost like military in like how well this camera team were drilled into Elvis. And like that final Vegas like setup was a stage. They built the whole stage, and that was a 20-minute Steadicam shot that they just rehearsed for like 3 days or something before they started filming it. Like it was so
meticulously,
which I just like nerdy film stuff, but like I just think that was incredible. I just love her style as DP, because she kind of reminds me of like theatre in a way, where it's so rehearsed and it's so, I mean, obviously like we have camera rehearsals, we do camera rehearsals, but like that kind of like blocking and going into like the choreography rehearsals like for days and days and just learning the music, and like they needed to know the choreography just the same as Austin did.
Yeah.
And they did, and I thought that was amazing.
You have embarrassed the sponsors, you have embarrassed yourself, you have embarrassed me. Now, you can sing whatever songs you and Mr. Bindle choose for 55 minutes, but at the end of the show, there will be a Christmas song. Or else we will be sued. No, you will be sued for breach of contract, because I will no longer be the promoter of your career. I will have to leave you.
Out of 5 Colonel Tom Parkers, how many Colonel Tom Parkers are you giving this film?
I feel like I need to start thinking of my rating before we record, because I'm always thinking on the spot. I would give this film 3.5, which sounds quite low, but like
it's still in the positive.
It is. There's like a lot about this film that I really appreciate, and I like, Jesus, the amount of work that went into this film is a spectacular amount.
I will say though, the amount of work that goes into any film. So you can't base it just on how much work.
I'm in the crew. I know
but
how
I'm just
much
saying,
work
like,
goes
you
into
can't base how good a film is on how much work it is to put together, because like then every film would get 5 stars because it's a lot of work.
It's always a lot of work, but I just mean like there was like a pre-production for this film. Like this one was a long time in the works, and I appreciate the work that everyone put into it, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And I think that it's incredibly difficult to make films about real people in a way that is like respectful and honest, but also a bit fantastical because it's film. And I just feel like the balance was struck reasonably well. But I did disengage a few times.
Yeah.
I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So for me, 3.5 Colonel
Okay.
Tom Parker's.
Okay.
How about you?
I think I'm going to surprise you.
Not higher than me, I'll kill you.
No, but I am going to give it 3.5 as well.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot about this film that I think I've already said that did not work for me.
Yeah.
I think, but I think as also, it's like sometimes it's like, it's just a personal taste thing. And like, I don't think Baz Luhrmann's style is ever going to necessarily gel with me, particularly. Like, I'm just not really into his style.
Yeah.
And so that's always going to be difficult for me. But there are places in this film where I'm like, he was totally the right guy to make this. Like I've already said, like all the performance moments and all that kind of stuff.
I have more stuff to say about camera, but I'm not going to. I just love Mandy Walker.
But I think for all the positives I've said about it, like Austin Butler, incredible. I think I can't justifiably give it like effectively a negative rating by putting it like under 3 stars, because we've sat here and talked for nearly an hour and a half about so many great things in this film.
Yeah.
When I was coming into this being like, I did not like this film. Like if you compare and contrast the end of this podcast to the start,
I feel like that's the same every time we do this. Which
I think is what is great about doing stuff like this, is that you gain an appreciation because people point out, you get all the stuff from it, and you talk about stuff and you don't just disregard it. 3.5 out. I was going to say 3.5 out of 5. Oh, that is right. 3.5 out of 5 for Elvis. I think we're both agreed on that.
Can I say one thing?
Go on. Is it going to be about camera and Mandy Walker?
It's not about, it's kind of about Mandy Walker.
Okay.
The scene where it's like the end, like they're in Vegas and it's after he's kind of had that like fit in his room where he's like, we're fucked. We're literally in under his thumb, and he's, living in a gilded cage and he's playing piano at the window. And then all the blinds come down and it's almost a complete blackout on screen, but then the TV comes on and it lights up his face. I just thought that was a really beautifully shot scene. And
cool.
All the best to the gaffer and the best boy, Mandy. That was sick.
Okay. So now you can join Elsa next week on her new podcast, We Love Mandy Walker, where Elsa will go into great detail about how she loves this woman.
The camera was, that had like a really like limited depth of field, and it really just like brought you into.
We're going to stop now.
Loved that.
Okay, so we're at the point of the podcast where we dive into the credits of the film. We pick out 3 crew members, and from that, we pick a crew member and we go to our next film that we'll be discussing next time. Mandy Walker is not included as one of the people on this list.
Shout out Mandy Walker. Have we spoken about Mandy Walker?
I think we have. So, your choice of crew members today, Elsa, are additional hairstylist Rebecca Allen.
It was good.
Special effects supervisor Brian Cox. Not Professor Brian Cox or the actor Brian Cox.
Who I've met.
The special effects supervisor Brian Cox. Or sound recordist David Lee. Not the former New York Knicks basketball player David Lee, but the sound recordist David Lee.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Have we done like a sound up before?
I don't know. I can't remember who we've done and who we haven't.
I don't think we have. So I think for that, shout out sound team. I'm going to go David Lee.
Okay. Well, that means, Elsa,
Oh no.
that we will be watching our first Keanu Reeves movie of the podcast, and we will be watching the first Matrix film.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say John Wick, and I cannot put myself through that again. That puppy, I can't do it.
So The Matrix. We'll be watching The Matrix next time on Cruise Next. Join us then. And thank you for listening and for watching. If you like the podcast, please share it with your friends and subscribe and all that good business. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
And shout out to Mandy Wall.